Talk. I'm Peter Lavelle. To remind you, we're talking about what some are calling the first cyber war. But first, let's see what Russians think about the freedom of information on the internet.
After the detention of Julian Assange, a number of hackers took to cyber battlefields. And while they're interrupting websites of major corporations, experts claim we're now witnessing the first real cyber war. But they also wonder what is driving these hackers. Is it because of the principle of free speech? The Russian Public Opinion Research Center asked citizens if freedom of speech on the internet needs to be regulated. 49% of the respondents support the idea, and another 16% say the information should be spread freely, claiming it to be the basic value of the internet. Back to you, Peter.
Okay, Jessica, I'd like to go back to you in Oxford. Let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say they really step hard on WikiLeaks. They really step hard on Assange. And put it really a shivering cold into the atmosphere of the blog sphere and things like that. Do you think that would have these activists that are known as anonymous, would they really get super vicious? What I'm saying is that there will be a cause and effect here right now. I mean, they've done very little damage. They've gotten a lot of publicity, but not very much damage. But if they really were, the authorities were to really try to crack down on this, do you think that it could get far more dangerous because, you know, revenge? I mean, this is what they're saying now, but it really would be on a massive scale.
Well, I mean, there's two major issues there. One is authorities are going to crack down, but the internet is inherently a global phenomenon, and the authorities, whoever they may be, can crack down in certain parts of the world. But you'd be unlikely to see a sort of global crackdown on freedom of speech on the internet. It would be very difficult to do that. In terms of what the anonymous group might do in response to something like that, they have their limitations. I mean, it's very easy to take a few websites offline. It's very easy to cause some disruption like that. When you get into more complicated hacking attempts, like trying to actually penetrate sites and trying to involve anything more complicated, that's a very different story, and you can't just round up a quick 50,000 people and get them to click on a button and do it. In another sense, the internet can provide a lot of public-facing information for people, but a lot of the critical infrastructure doesn't really function over the internet. We're not talking about power grids or anything like that. We're talking about websites, maybe even payment systems like for banks. But we've already seen, from the point of view of what Anonymous can do, there was a sort of nascent attempt to attack Amazon. Now, Amazon themselves are a very large hosting company, and it seems that the Anonymous attacks against Amazon were just filtered out by Amazon. Amazon were able to take that punch and roll with it. So I think we definitely see limitations to what they can effectively achieve. And especially with things like this, they tend to be a little bit of a craze. People are very interested, people are very involved at the moment, but the interest can potentially die off as the stories drop out of the media. And I think that sort of brings the capabilities of the group down with it.
Abe, if I can go to you, what is your reaction? What should the authorities be doing to organizations like WikiLeaks? I mean, make it just espionage, conspiracy. I mean, really beef up the laws to discourage people to do this. Try to change at least part of the nature of the internet, maybe in the United States or within agencies of the United States. I mean, what are the lessons learned here, or what should the reaction be?
Right. Well, probably a little of all. You know, as we know, they're trying to put together an espionage case. They're trying to make the case that Assange was collaborating with Bradley Manning in getting these secrets and stealing these American secrets. Look, Barack Obama's cyber czar, Howard, forget his name now, Howard Schmidt, has said, well, you know, a cyber war, it's not anything we really have to worry about on a grand scale, because any country can, any country that would wage a cyber war in the U.S. would end up, the internet is too global. Any country that waged a cyber war in the U.S. would end up suffering itself. If China, which was the big fear of a cyber attack, if China were to wage a cyber attack on the U.S. on a grand scale, Chinese investment in U.S. would plummet along with American markets. But I think we've been caught completely unawares because the attacks are coming from these transnational, sort of loose networks, and people who are self-proclaimed and identifiably anarchists. And anarchists have nothing to lose by these attacks. And we need to, I think, reframe the question in how we're going to fight off this new cyber anarchy. You know, and Josh's point is a good one about the limitations of what these cyber attacks have done so far. But like all combat, techniques and technology evolve. And just because they had a hard time taking Amazon offline this week, that doesn't tell us a thing about next month or next year or the next group that comes along. So I think we're going to have to institute some new laws. I think we're going to have to get on top of technology, and we're going to have to take all of this a whole lot more seriously.
Go right ahead.
Can I
go ahead, jump in. Go ahead, jump in. Go ahead.
The premise of this program has been using the term cyber war, and this is the first time it's come up in the program openly. But I don't see necessarily why this would be viewed as cyber warfare in a particular sense. I mean, it's a very dramatic term. It's a very it gets a lot of stories, and I'm sure it'll get a lot of people research funding. But I don't see. Are you actually claiming that what's going on at the moment is cyber warfare? Would that not necessitate a nation state to be involved, perhaps? And really, when you get down to it, what can the cyber warfare achieve in terms of actual serious damage to a country beyond potentially some economic effects and maybe some propaganda or information passing?
It's a very good, Maria. What about you? I mean. Well, okay, Abe, you want to jump in there, and I'll go to Maria. Go ahead. Yeah, Abe, let Abe jump in because he was reacting first. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I have a quick answer, yeah. I mean, for starters, one thing we know from the past 10 years is that warfare does not have to involve a nation state at all. The U.S. has been involved with a loose aggregate of Islamists across the globe that are nationals from a plethora of countries. So I don't think that is an exclusionary factor for cyber warfare. What can it do aside from a few economic things? I mean, I think it depends on the extent of the attack. Certainly, if secrets, if personal secrets, if private emails, if company emails, if customer databases, if all that were to be exposed, markets might become meaningless in an eventual scenario, and a true financial collapse, true financial plummeting in this sort of transnational, globally connected economy will certainly result in
you're bringing up a really
deaths in a picture that will look a lot like a regular war.
That's a really good point, Maria. You know, this is the line that I'm trying to get at here, is that there are people that are doing it for activist reasons. No, let me hear me out. They're doing it for activist reasons, and you support this, obviously. But where does it go over the line? Because we're talking about security and then actually criminality as well. I mean, you can get in and expose a government, but then, attacking your enemies, and then most likely it will be commercial. Okay, go ahead.
First of all, let's talk about criminality. Let's talk about economic collapse. Certainly, this country has needed no help from WikiLeaks to do that to itself. We have criminals continuing to run our economy, to run Wall Street, and to run the rest of us in the ground. So conflating what WikiLeaks is doing, what activists like myself support, with an eventual economic collapse is just disingenuous and false. I'm surprised Mr. Greenwald would engage in that kind of rhetoric. Anyway. I do take exception also to, there's a couple things Mr. Green
just made any sense.
Said.
Finish your point, Maria. Go ahead. And then I want to go to Joss.
Okay.
No. My point is, look, I think what I said made perfect sense for most people who don't have an ideological axe to grind. Let me say this. First of all, WikiLeaks did not steal anything. Okay, there's another use of language that's really distressing and pretty dangerous. They didn't steal anything. And also, cyber war.
I never said they did.
What exactly is that? And also, yeah, you did. You just said that he stole. Yes, that he was stealing. So yeah,
no,
you
I said
did.
Bradley Manning
and,
did. Bradley Manning did.
Cyber...
Bradley Manning did, and the
You
U.S.
didn't say
government is
Bradley
looking
Manning,
to see to what extent WikiLeaks might have. Yeah, I certainly did. The U.S. government is looking to see to what extent
you did not
Julian
mention Bradley
Assange
Manning's
might
name,
have
Mr.
collaborated
Greenwald.
with him.
So you
I
did
most
not
certainly
mention
did.
Bradley Manning's name, but that's another conversation, actually. Bradley Manning's potential possible place in all of this, but he is innocent until proven guilty. And he is being held in isolation in Guantanamo and is being mistreated at the least. So what is happening to Bradley Manning requires probably at least another good half an hour. But getting back to the terminology, first of all, conflating anarchists with citizen activists like myself and many, many, many others in this country and around the world is also disingenuous. We are not talking about anarchism. We are not talking about anarchists. We are talking about the only one of the few avenues left.
The group Anonymous, they're self-declared anarchists. That's how they describe themselves.
It's your language.
I'd like to go to Oxford now. I'd like to give to Oxford get the last voice here. Go ahead.
Right. The thing that concerns me about the term cyber war is that it can be used as a way to bring in what you might consider the rules of war, or the approach that is taken in war, which is to some extent to get rid of due process in legal courts, and it can be used to be excessively harsh towards people. In terms of the values of Anonymous, one of the problems is you can't say Anonymous are anarchists. You can certainly say that there are people taking part in Anonymous who are anarchists, but we know very little about the people who are involved with Anonymous because they are anonymous. They're perhaps not as anonymous as they think they are, but anonymous does not mean anarchic.
All right. You want to get to who wants the last word? We got 20 seconds. Abe, you want to get the last word?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that we're hearing, particularly from Maria, this sort of rehashed, big yawn about government criminals and how.
All right, we've run out of time, folks. Thank you. The wonderfully interesting conversation. We've run out of time. Many thanks to my guests today in New York, Oxford, and Baltimore, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules. Thank you.